Looks like Beckhingham Palace is Buckingham Palace after all. What is up, winning team? And of course, we're going to be talking about this Brooklyn Beckham situation. The child of Victoria Beckham and David Beckham, of course, Victoria, well known for being in the Spice Girls, and David, a famous football player in this country. And the reason I refer to them as Beckhingham Palace is because near where I live, ironically, shock, they used to have a property and we all used to call it Beckhingham Palace. So when this whole thing broke down, it just made me laugh. The thought went from my head was like, oh, Beckhingham Palace is Buckingham Palace after all. And I want to share my tale because how everybody's reacted to this situation has just been another example of why I hate it here. And how disconnected people are from the truth about being celebrities and how enslaved to celebrities people actually are, right? Because obviously, if you didn't know, I'm going to very, very quickly summarize what happened. So Brooklyn the other day turned to Instagram to make a post, which I screenshot all of it because, you know, in this day and age, things get deleted in a heartbeat. And I wanted to take the time to read it myself properly, where he was sharing about how he just wants to be left alone. He's trying to keep himself distanced from his family. He's sick of how he's been posted online for all these years and everything. And he just wants to basically live his life. And that, you know, his parents have been putting up this facade, this performance for everybody, and that who they are, what people think they are, and who they really are two different things. Now, this story obviously didn't come to as a surprise to me whatsoever for a number of reasons. Number one is that I literally have been saying to you guys before this story broke out, before this was a thing, that I believe it's all staged. I believe all of Hollywood, the sports industries, media, science, you name it, is all staged. They all know what they're doing, and we are just the dumb idiots of the jury of the sheeple who they are putting on the performance so they can sway our judgment, they can sway the narrative, they can sway our votes. Right? And that's what they always do. That's why things always leaked to the press. Where do you think the leaks come from? Right? Because even with this whole situation, right? Again, David Beckham had posted just around Christmas on New Year's Day. So before Christmas, Brooklyn had blocked all of his family on social media, which again, people just believe that just because you were born, two people had sex one day, right? And now all of a sudden, these people are your biggest champions in life, your greatest heroes, and the people that have your back, and everybody connected to them included, right? Which is one of the biggest lies of all time. Because again, I see this in my job as a teacher that people like to believe that complicated family situations are like a rare thing, but I actually think healthy families is the rare thing. I think we've just got used to where you're not allowed to speak on certain issues. We've all just normalized it, and we found other ways to deal with said trauma. So rather than being able to directly address things, we end up developing mental health disorders, addictions, other different coping mechanisms, all these labels we have to call ourselves because we're dealing with undealt with trauma. We're not allowed to deal with it because it's the taboo subject, which is always family. Isn't it funny how you can go on a smear campaign for a relationship? If somebody cheats on me, I can make a 90 story thing about being cheated on. You know what I mean? Beyonce and Jay-Z, Beyonce was praised for making an album about being cheated on. The second that it is your blood relative, oh, you're the devil. So this is already why I'm inclined to believe him. Second of all, he's the oldest. Third of all, he's the one who's actually in the house. Again, it's funny how people, and something about the jury of the sheeple being idiots. It's funny how people are so quick to be swayed in a situation they're not in. And where you've only heard one take of it. Because people heard Brooklyn blocked all of his family before Christmas. And then on New Year's Day, David Beckham's dad posts a picture of him and Brooklyn and saying, I love you so much. And then, of course, the press is all, you know, David sends out an olive branch to his son. And I was like, I know these manipulative tactics because I've seen this before. Where somebody knows that you have a problem with them, knows that you've distanced yourself with them intentionally. You're trying to do everything in your power to not make this about a smear campaign about them, to not even, in fact, you don't want to think about them. You're trying your best not to think about them, right? And then they go and do something that then ignites everybody else and then puts you back, your name back out there again. So it's like, now, because everyone's like, oh, your dad, because I've even had people say that to me, like, you know, so-and-so's trying. And I'm like, that person clearly told you one half of the story. Because if you heard my half of the story, you'd be over here on my side. But just because I'm not prepared to go on a huge smear campaign, you're on that person's side. And that's what we see with them. They've been, like a lot of, unfortunately, families do today, posting their kids all out their life. When he was born, his pictures were on the internet, in the tabloids. As he was growing up, he was on the tabloids. He's always been in the public eye. That's something he didn't ask for. For him, he's worse off than a lot of us, because none of us asked to be born. Many of us, well, I'll speak for myself, I certainly would have declined if I'd seen what my life was going to be like, at least up to this stage. Even worse, you didn't sign up to have your life online for everybody to critique. So now, again, the Jew of the sheeple has this deluded sense that we're more involved than we are because we only know what we've seen. And then we've picked which side we sit on. We immediately say, oh, and this is what's been so crazy for me about the situation, is how the fixation specifically on what was this inappropriate dance of Victoria Beckham. I'm like, people are really so dumb and dense in this life, in this world, right? How is that close to the most important thing that was mentioned? How is that? Because again, of course, do you know why the people do that? Because it's subjective. Now everyone's like, oh, show us the tape, show us the tape, show us the tapes. So then we can all make our judgment, and then we'll be swayed again. Some people will say that's not really appropriate. Some people will say that it is. Some people will be like, well, in our culture, it's normal for this. In our culture, it's that's what it's going to be. It's just going to, and it's not about them. It's not about what's right. It's not about the family. No one cares about what's right. Everybody just cares about the story. All of a sudden now Victoria's music is blowing up, right? And for me, that's also insane because, again, I have an issue with the Spice Girls. I said that. It's not that they're not talented, but we knew, and this is, again, these are things that incline me to believe that there's the potential for shady stuff, right? We know that the Spice Girls, their main audience who they had, and this was, again, the same thing we're seeing today with Cat's Eye. That's why I've been talking about them. And there's so many other females where you have these women who are, dancing, singing, whatever, in a way that's appropriate for adults, but not for children. And yet children are being the ones predominantly taken to said concerts, right? A lot of the people who support the Spice Girls, it's because you watch them and you listen to them when you were a kid, right? So that just goes to tell me we're very much okay with inappropriate behavior towards kids because all the adults are paying for their kids, taking their kids to these Spice Girls concerts, and the Spice Girls know who their audience was, and everybody defending, oh my gosh, I remember when I was like 8 and the Spice Girls were my favorites. Like, yeah. And we wonder why we have problems in the world. We wonder why we're in such a degenerate society. We wonder why kids who are actually being hurt and stuff in this world don't get the help, because so much of things, inappropriate behavior around children or someone's children. And I say it like that as in, like, there's certain things your children as a parent, I don't think need to be a part of. You know what I'm saying? They don't need to know certain things about your relationship romantically or whatever, or see you in certain lights, because it's just not appropriate. It's not whether you tortured them massively or it's just inappropriate. You know what I mean? And it's crazy for me to be the one to have to say this. So I believe him. I've said to you guys before, we've already seen it. People are all like, oh my gosh, I can't believe all this stuff was happening with P. Diddy. Where was this happening? You can't believe all this stuff with Epstein. How was this happening? Because they created the facade. They created the thing for you guys to look at that convinces you in your human wisdom. This is why in the Bible with Adam and Eve, God literally was like, listen, if you choose your own knowledge, it's going to take you to death. You guys are going to cause destruction for yourself because you don't know what you don't know. And I know everything. And that's why I'm saying I can give you life. You can have life. Or you can choose knowledge and see how that figures out. And this is what brings us to here. So we're out here playing judge and jury, watching all this stuff. This is why I wasn't even quick to say anything. I thought I'd write it out a little bit, see what's happening. And then I'll comment just my thoughts, on the situation and why I'm inclined to believe him. Of course. And of course, this is why he never spoke up. Why do you think he's never said anything? Because he knows the inevitable. He knows the inevitable, but he's now at a place in his life where he's married, he's with his wife, whether you agree with her or not, because again, the people of the jury, the sheeple again, isn't it funny how him speaking about it is now inappropriate, right? Them speaking about it, things all throughout the years was inappropriate. You telling a child what you think and don't think and all of us think, right? That's appropriate, but what's not appropriate is for him to share his side of things. That's crazy. And again, that's the world we live in. This is why I told you guys, so I don't want to have children, because I don't want to just open my legs one day and then pop out a baby and all of a sudden I'm infallible and I'm not capable of doing any wrong in this life. I don't want that for me and I don't want that for my kids. I'd rather people can give me good, strong advice and hold me accountable so I could be I would be the best mother that I would be, but I just know that in this life that's not going to happen. All my bad behavior is going to be encouraged and all my good behavior, who even needs good behavior in this day and age, right? So, it just makes me sad, the situation that the attention isn't even what matters. The tape doesn't matter, really. What matters is a lot more of the other things he said. The facade they've put on over the years. The fact that he's spoken up about them lying on other people's names. Notice how no one's talking about that enough. I just don't understand. Like, this all shocked me yesterday because I was trying to avoid seeing anything about it and then accidentally found myself down the rabbit hole. And what shocked me is like that this was the fixation of everyone. I'm like, and this is what happens every time. It's like with the Diddy stuff and the Epstein stuff. People don't care about the kids in the underground tunnels. This is what I'm saying. The world doesn't care about children. People don't care about the kids in the underground tunnels. They don't care to name and know where these people are that were affected and whatever. They just want to know which celebrities were on the list, what was really going on at the Diddy parties, people making fun of doing things with baby oil, just like how people making fun of, I saw yesterday, all these videos of people making, imitating what they think Victoria Beckham's dance was like. I'm like, this kid has literally come out to say he's gone through this, right? Let's say that he is lying, which I don't believe that he is, but let's say even if he was, it's still a serious matter. We're a world where we say, oh, mental health, blah, blah, blah. If this guy had taken his own life, you know what everyone would say? Oh, this is so sad, guys. If there's anything you're going through, feel free to speak up. Then people say, oh, if you needed to deal with this in private. Do you not think that a lot of people have not tried to do that? Do you not think a lot of people have not tried to actually do that already? Matter of fact, sometimes if somebody has drawn you out in public, I'm a big believer that if you get drawn out in public, I get to correct you in public as well. If people needed to keep things between each other, they should have kept things between each other in private as a family of all the other negatives they've had to say throughout the years. Is anybody talking, not enough people talking about how Victoria Beckham had up, and again, they've taken it down now. She literally had an eyeshadow color called Nicola's a Slag or something like that. It's like Nicola's a Slag or something like that it was called. Right? And again, have you ever noticed, this is what I hate about this world as well. The people that are doing heinous things, they get away with it and do it in 4K because they've put up such a good facade and such a good performance and such good PR training that nobody's questioning anything that they're doing. No one's even paying attention. So even when they do something that's off, no one notices. But when it's the person everybody wants to be against, then all of a sudden we're fighting tooth and nail. It's like what I say about people with God. People will have every single nitpick to pick about God, about the Bible, about everything. Right? But when you see other people, other religious groups doing certain things or other groups of whatever doing things, we just turn a blind eye to a lot of stuff because, it's so crazy how the world is, right? And so this is why I was comparing this situation to Buckingham Palace. I said Beckhingham Palace is like Buckingham Palace after all. You know what I mean? You have people that were probably maybe suffering in silence, maybe trying to do things the good way. I love that we live in a society. This is sarcasm, by the way. I love that we live in a society that our immediate thought when somebody speaks up is that they didn't never bother to try to do things the right way. I love that we live in a society that in a situation where there's two people with two different versions of the story, we automatically are happy to believe one side was doing things with the right intentions, but the other side was doing things for the wrong intentions, and that we have all the information to make the decision of which is which. I absolutely love it here. This is the best time. I'm having the greatest holiday of my life. I'm so happy to be alive. Literally, this is what I'm saying. It's like with Harry and Meghan. Now, that's why I do equate the two. And I almost see them, I've said to you guys before about Harry and Meghan. I feel like Harry, similar to how I feel about Brooklyn here, was stuck between a rock and a hard place because Harry had been through a lot. He wasn't necessarily he wasn't likely to become king. Obviously, it's not completely impossible, but it was highly unlikely, right? Some very extreme things would have had to happen. So all of us who grew up in the UK know that we all, again, got to all watch him growing up. The newspapers are like, Prince Harry spotted tanning naked in Barcelona. Like we've heard all the stories and all this stuff in the tabloids again. And again, the tabloids, the news, the PR, and the parents, let me say it again, are allowed to say whatever they want, wherever they want, however they want, right? But then the victims speaking up can't say a thing. I can't say a single damn thing. They can't do a single damn choice for themselves. And that's why I feel like Prince Harry found himself between a rock and a hard place. He saw his mom pass away. I'd also like to ask, guys, where's Kate Middleton? Where is she? Where is she? Because we haven't seen her in a while. Yeah, about that, but that's a conversation for another day. And, we have all these thoughts about all these people, right? We pick and choose. Like I said, we pick and choose when, this is acceptable, this isn't acceptable, the tabloids, whatever. It's the same story. And then when Harry and Meghan try to step away, obviously, when you try to step away from one monster, other monsters are going to come after you. And I do think for Harry and Meghan, again, Hollywood was so excited, especially America as a whole, but also Hollywood, to kind of get the scoop on, the ex-royal family member because it's a big deal. I don't think Harry has anybody who's really on his side. I've said this before. I do think Meghan arguably is a lot more on his side than others. I don't know in full reality. I do think what really happened with those two, which could be happening with Nicola and Brooklyn, is there's an overlap of one person having been like, as in, so Harry and Brooklyn in this case, having been in a situations where they didn't have a voice, they went through things that made them uncomfortable, they weren't exactly happy, but they didn't have an out. Then they find a woman who advocates for them, cares about them, and is providing a way out, right? And they want to do that. And of course, guys, and this is the classic, like, it's like with Britney Spears. If you're coming from an infrastructure where everything about you, because even now people are like, it's only, and this just goes to show how much the world are truly slaves to money. Because everyone's like, oh, well, Brooklyn, he only has everything he has because of his family name. That's supposed to be a good thing. First of all, that's how it's supposed to be. The Bible says in Proverbs 13:22 that a good man sets up an inheritance for his children's children. His children's children, right? That's supposed to be a good thing. I know we live in the world today where you just have kids, treat them as good as a dog, food on the table, clothes on the back, roof over their head, kick them out at 18, tell them to figure it out. That's not what God intended. So I just like to start with that. It's supposed to be. You're supposed to be able to walk around pridefully and be in the upper hand. I would hope that I would create a reputation where my name and my association would be a benefit to my child. And I wouldn't see that as a negative. I'll see that as a positive, because guess what? That means that what was the ceiling for what I could achieve, the ceiling is even greater for them. Because I would pray that my children or my grandchildren would be able to do far greater than I can based on the work that I've done. That's supposed to be the point. So I just don't get why society is so hateful. That's why I think society hates children. I've said this before. People are like, oh yeah, so it's just because of his name, whatever, because of his name. Okay, good. That's the point. That's supposed to be the benefit. That's supposed to be the benefit of being successful, that your children are better off in life. But no, it's like, if you don't suffer, if you're not born into suffering, figuring everything out for yourself, right? Making sure you know how to buy a house while you're still in the womb, while the embryo is still dividing, then that's on you. You need to just do it. Like, this is why I hate it here, right? So with this whole thing, I'm just like, yeah, that just because, and again, it's like, as soon as, this is another reason. I'm just telling you guys, because I feel like there's never enough perspectives from people who are prepared to say the things I'm going to say in this video. This is the exact reason I don't like to accept help from people, by the way, either in life. Because I feel like people always want to use, a lot of people weaponize, and I saw this doctor, she was talking about this psychologist. I've seen a few of them talk about how, oh, there's an actual term for it, I've forgotten it. People that do things for you so that in order to like shut you up. It's the classic case of, you know, the women of old, where you'd have these women who'd have these husbands that clearly were never around, obviously off, cheating all the time, very wealthy, and they would treat, and the gag was always that, well, but they'd always come back with the Birkin. They'd always come back with the Rollie. While they were away, yes, they were out cheating on you, but they'll pay for you and your friends or whatever to go and spend 3 weeks in the Bahamas. You know what I mean? It's like paying you off. And you even see this like with a lot of people who've been predators. They use the same exact tactics. You hear it from the people that have come from the church, who have accused church leaders of paying them and saying, hey, as long as we do our little thing behind the scenes and you don't tell anyone, listen, everything's paid for. A couple of guys were sitting crying from Diddy for the exact same reason. They were like, oh my gosh, we were like, I feel so bad, but this man was paying for my rent. He was paying for everything. So that's why I carried on for years. We saw the same thing with Jeffrey Epstein, where like why were girls still going back to Epstein Island knowing what was there and whatever? Because they were providing opportunities. As somebody said in one of these interviews or somewhere that I saw with Epstein, that all of the girls that were at Epstein Island were either runaways or running away. Do you see what I'm saying? Gifting and doing things for people doesn't, like, I don't want to receive anything from anybody because I don't want that to be an excuse for why you think you now get to justify mistreating me. Or you get to justify bad behavior. Because that's what people do. It's like, oh, but I did this. Oh, but I did this. It's like no one's taking that away from you. And guess what? Two things can be true at the same time. Yes, you did that. You also did something that's really hurtful. And a lot of times when people do hurtful behaviors and they can get away with it, they don't just plateau there and keep their toxicity level. They just realize they can get away with more and more and more, which is why I believe people end up just separating in the end. Because it gets to the point where you're overwhelmed, where it's like, I can't even tolerate this without maintaining my own sanity. And again, because it's so evil and it's so toxic and it's very demonic. And I've said this to you guys before, that in relationships, you'll always work out. There's only 3 destinations to any relationship. There's 2 destinations, 3 pathways to get there. 2 of them lead the same direction. You have relationships between two selfish people, you're always going to part ways because you're both going to always see every single time your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions, your needs, your wants more important than the other. Then you have the selfish and selfless person relationship, right? Which again, I saw another psychologist talking about how a lot of kids there's some kids, how different kids relate differently to their circumstances. Some rebel against their situation, their home situation, and they become like the scapegoat, the black sheep. They become exiled because they're the one who's speaking up, who's confronting everything, and that's a problem. Or there's these golden children who are not really golden children. They just put on that act as a safety tactic. Like, it's better if I don't speak up. It's better if I shut up. It's better if I'm just a people pleaser. It's better if I just don't do whatever, because then that's going to be safer for me, because the thoughts of the consequences, right? Because I saw this lady on TikTok, and it was really interesting. This mum, she was talking about it, and she was like, guys, I'm a woman whose my kids were estranged from me for some time, and we're now rebuilding our relationships. And she was describing a conversation that she had with her youngest son. Her kids all adults now. And she was talking about, and I thought this was healthy. This is the healthy stuff that should be happening, but it doesn't happen, because this is the first ever time in any of these situations I've heard something like this, right? And she was like, they basically, her and her son, they both explained things from either side. She was like, you were always like my golden child, because she described this child as her favorite child because her child didn't give her any problems. But her therapist did help her to understand that might not be what you think that is, because when she then spoke with her son, he said, yeah, I was, and that's just because I was scared. I didn't want to have to deal with the consequences, so I just kind of internalized everything, and I just acted how I wanted. And that's why, again, she's then shocked after the fact he's moved out and they all gone estranged with her. What happened? You were like my best kid. And she's like, yeah, of course I was your best kid, because I was the kid who just fell in line for safety purposes. This is what I'm trying to say to you guys. Like, these situations, they've got so many layers. And obviously now she's you see how simple that is, that when you can just actually take accountability to say, oh, I understand your reality, you understand my reality. That wasn't what I meant. That wasn't what you meant. She apologized, and she says she was toxic and she was the reason her kids moved out. I think that sentence alone is what opened the door for them to come back in, because she was willing to take some accountability, right? And I feel like that would go a long way for a lot of people. And because of that, it's not about she's going to now be put on pitchfork, because I don't know why parents act like this. Like, as soon as they take accountability for their failings, that they're just going to be judged for the rest of their life. And anyways, you're the ones the most judgmental anyway. Let's be honest. Listen how parents comment on other parents. That's scary. Even when I was making myself some food before I was recording this, I was watching this woman I love to watch. She's got like a normal job. She's got a family of 3, and she makes all these just very normal life videos. And when I tell you, the women in her comment section are just brutal, and they nitpick at everything. I'm like, I thought that we were trying to say that parenting was a hard job, and I thought I was being harsh on everybody. But we're here heavily critiquing. How did we? And she, to me, seemed like the most just normal, natural parent. She's not overplaying, like trying to make everything look perfect. She's not creating a facade. She's just saying, today, I'm stressed. I'm so glad my kids went to bed. I'm going to watch 90 Day Fiancé, whatever. But you can see how much she loves her kids. Like, you know what I mean? That's what you're allowed to do. What we're not allowed to do is pretend as if we're infallible. That's where we have the problems. And this is where we find ourselves in these situations, where now the response of the British public is, oh, let's make Victoria have her first number one because her son was estranged from her and says her family's toxic, that he needed to get away and he just wants to be left alone. And again, isn't that so funny? Like, it's like the least consensual thing ever. He's like, I just want to be left alone. Like, just don't mention my name. Why does his dad have to post a picture of him if he knows he wants to just be separated? Why? Him and his wife are doing what they're doing over there, but they are the ones bringing him up. It's the same thing that happens with the Kardashians and Kanye West. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, Kim K is going through so much. The Kardashians are going through so much with Kanye. It must be so hard to have had kids with a man like that. And I'm like, how? You guys are the ones who keep triggering him. Unfortunately, he's just not wise enough to not take the bait a lot of the time, but he's gotten better. I think now he's just in a worse state. Every time they need a bit of extra clout, every time they need a bit of extra drama, their name in people's face a bit more. It's, oh, and what about Kanye? And they have to stay. And again, it's staged, because Keeping Up with the Kardashians is literally like the most staged of all reality TV. I don't even know why anybody believes. And when you hear people talk about the Kardashians, and again, because I started watching them at the very beginning, before the surgeries, and they used to look how they used to look. When Caitlyn was still Bruce, in the early stages, I used to watch them. So watching them now, it's so obvious how staged every conversation, every little thing they do, the clothing they're wearing, the food they're eating, the interactions as a family is so staged to create a certain thing. And so then it's like Kim and Chris having like, so Kim, I haven't been able to talk to you for a while. So how's that situation with Kanye? I mean, you just got so much on your plate. I don't know why he can't just leave you alone. Do you think he's having another like episode? And it's always this. And then it triggers Kanye. And then guess what? No one talks about the Kardashians talking about Kanye. No one talks about how they can't get his name out of their mouth. All they talk about is how he reacts. And that's exactly what always happens. Because again, all these experts, I've been listening to all the psychologists that everybody trusts so much in, all these psychologists, people who've studied it for years. I've been looking into these studies and all of this. And it goes to show, it's like what I say to you guys, that even in the game of life, it's the same thing. It's not the battle of good versus evil. It's truth versus the closest lie. And that's why the devil always swoops in to give his statement first. Because then if you now come and try to defend yourself, you now look like the messy one. But whoever got there first gets to get away with it, and whoever got there first sways the jury of the sheeple. That's why I've told you guys, there's a lot of situations that I could actually fix, even relationships in my own life, if I was prepared to play the same game other people played. But I already know I'm going to be labeled as the messy one for now defending myself, and I'm not trying to be messy. I'm correcting incorrect information that was given. I'm adding information that was strategically left out. And there's a thing called lying by omission, by the way. And so I know that I've got there's no way to win. So at the end of the day, I'll just have to just cut a whole bunch of people off and just leave them at a distance. And they may just think, and I'm just going to let them believe I'm the villain, because it's either that I'm going to show up and behave like those who have swayed them already, or if I speak up like a Brooklyn, I'm going to find myself in that situation, because that's how the jury of the sheeple works. So that's my thoughts on the whole situation. I feel for him in the way that his dad put out that post, knowing it's the invasiveness of it all. It's the predatorialness, you guys. It's the same thing. That to me is no different to somebody trying to touch me or trying to grab me to do something to me, because it's like I've communicated a boundary. And this is a classic case when you see these things in families where you have communicated boundaries. I told you guys, I've learned that you don't communicate your boundaries to people, because if they're the kinds of people that want to violate them or have an entitlement, which again, just because somebody ejaculated inside somebody else, both of these people are entitled apparently to do whatever they want with you, right? At whatever age, just because of that, which is just, there's nothing consensual about being born. You don't choose to be here. You don't choose who you're born to. And then when you're in the world, those people get every single excuse in the book and every single entitlement. You know what I mean? I see people like, oh, she wouldn't let me see my grandkids. It's like, maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's a reason. Who gave you the rights? Who gave you the rights? She's now that child, your son, your daughter's responsibility to make sure that they look after their kids properly. And if they feel that you're not supposed to be there, that's their prerogative. The same way that it was your prerogative to open your legs that day. Like, how is it like, I just don't get it. But yeah, it's the consent thing. Like, someone's trying to separate themselves from you. Somebody's trying to be separate, and you go and you make a fuss at public thing anyway. And then when it's now in the public and they now retaliate in public, it's a problem. The same thing with Kanye. Like I said, you'd been blocked. He's trying to separate himself. He's married over there. He's doing what he wants to do over there. He's actually done you a favor by keeping all your secrets, and because that he could just spill, which he hasn't done. He didn't call anybody else out. He didn't say anybody else's name, right? After you comfortably did that for all these years. And then we now want to look at him somehow as the villain in the story arc, just like with Kanye. Like I said, just happens all the time. We now look at these people like the villains of the story. We now nitpick at their stories. That's insane. This is why I say this world is a hellscape. This is a hellscape. This is hell. I hate it here. And I can't wait for the Lord to relieve me of this sad existence on this wretched planet, because this is horrible. This is horrible. And you know what hurts my heart about this situation more than anything? Is that I know that this is one of those things that a lot of people are suffering from. Because again, I told you, I work with kids, and it's just really interesting, when you, it's really interesting how, so whenever it comes to kids, young people, children, it's like everybody is always to blame except from the people that brought them here. And I'm not trying to target parents, guys. I'm just saying that sometimes they do wrong as well. Because this guy was talking as a teacher. It was so funny because I was on TikTok, right? And which I barely go on. I tried to barely go on it because there's too many good rabbit holes on TikTok. Let's all be honest, right? And this guy who's a teacher was making a bunch of videos, and he was like how some people said that about how it's frustrating when you're trying to tell parents that you're not lying about their child when they accuse you of lying about their child, and somebody had said, oh well, teachers should wear body cams like how police does, and then he was like, I don't think teachers need to, because the parents know who their kids are because they've seen it, so they just don't want to acknowledge it. Right? And people in the comments are like, well, and then it was all the parents in the comments, well, If the teachers are going to wear body cams to see the kids, we should also have footage of the teachers. Oh, I welcome it. In my business, by the way, whenever I'm doing my own private stuff anyways, like especially if I'm working with, say, parents who want to do whatever, one-on-one teaching or whatever, like I have a client like that actually at the moment I'll be starting with, where they travel all the time and they need somebody to teach all the subjects to their kids. These are the jobs I like because I get to focus on minimal amount of students, put my maximum effort and have very flexible schedule and get a close relationship with the family, which just makes everybody's life easier, right? I encourage them to sit in on the lessons all the time. I say to them, like, please sit in. Because, I don't know, the parents think that it's almost as if they think that we're going to turn out to be fraudulent hypocrites like they are. Like, come and sit in my lesson. I've even said for years that schools should allow, parents should be spending more time at the school. They should be coming and watching lessons. And not to watch the teacher or watch the kid, but just to be more involved. That's what I've been saying for years. So it's crazy that, and somebody talking about that and saying we don't need to have the body cams because, whatever, well, if they're going to have the body cams of watching the students, and we also need to have the body cams of the teachers. Somebody else was like, well, and on another complete video was like, teachers should be getting, what do you call it? Random drug testing. And I was like, and then one of the teachers in the comments was like, hey, I'll do it if you're doing it as well. If the teachers are doing it, the parents are doing it as well. Because this is what I'm saying. It's like everything except, and this is why I didn't want to get into these topics, because I know that I'm going to target the most infallible group in society and that the most hateful, prideful, unaccountable group of people. For some, because obviously, like I say to you guys, there's always two sides. There's always the winners and the losers. So there's plenty who are not like the ones I'm talking about now. I know I'm just like, why do I have to open my mouth? But somebody has to, because like I said, my heart is genuinely out and my heart is genuinely broken for all these people like who are going through this in the world, who are just silenced because unfortunately, their trauma wasn't palatable for the general public, right? Or extreme enough to be taken seriously just because they didn't come to school every day with a black eye, or because they didn't, whatever. They didn't come from a house full of addicts, let's say. Then it's like whatever they went through, we have to fine tune it with a comb. No wonder people don't speak up. No wonder people take their lives, you know what I'm saying? And whatever, no wonder. And then people say, oh, but you should speak up. We will support mental health. Speak up. There's always somebody to talk to. And it's like, no, there isn't. In a lot of situations, there isn't. There isn't. Do you know that I discovered yesterday, again, courtesy of TikTok, that on websites like Childline and Samaritans, there are actually grown men, can you imagine, who are calling to have these sexual conversations while they get themselves off in the way. So people have called Childline, children have called even Childline for help, yeah? And one of the ladies said, working at Samaritans, it was about 10%, but also Childline, they're being put on hold. They might be in scary situations because there is a grown man who's immediately answering the phone to talk dirty things with the staff on helplines. Helplines. Can you imagine? This is the world we're living in. This is the world we're living in. And again, when it comes to everything, we care all about this. No one's talking about those kids in the underground tunnels. People say, oh, what's happening with the kids? What's happening with the kids? And I go to school, get on social media, you'll see what's happening with them. Why are we surprised? Why are we shocked? When situations like this come out, oh, you shouldn't handle, it's like what Christians do. Oh, you shouldn't handle that privately. And when the person who did whatever they did was very loud and proud and public with what they had to say about you, and even making up stories and even sharing things that you asked not to be shared, they were fine. And now you just want to get your say, which is supposed to be fair, right? Because that's actually fairness. That's the whole point even of a court case, having both sides heard, is supposed to be that way before a judgment is made. But you made your judgment of the first story you heard. You didn't even take the time to come and hear that other person's story. And then if the other person wants to share their story, now they're in the wrong. I hate it here. I'm leaving it there. Those are just my thoughts. None of us really know what's going on behind the scenes, but all I'll say is that I'm inclined to believe Brooklyn Beckham, and I feel sorry for the guy, and I feel sorry for everybody else who's in those kinds of situations, because like this other woman did, I feel like if we all were able to do that, I think we would all realize that we're all just broken human beings. We all made mistakes. We all have things we need to take accountability for. We're all done wrong in different ways. It's not targeting one person or the other. The only reason I keep talking about one group is because it seems to be one group that's infallible. If we could all just come together and just acknowledge things, everything would work out for the better. But because we can't do that, it's the classic case of if somebody has to be to blame at the end of the day. And unfortunately, we live in a world where the person that gets to blame isn't necessarily that's who's to blame, or it's not even that we can share the blame, but it's whoever can make the best case and sway the jury of the sheeple. And unfortunately, that never seems to sway in the direction of the children, no matter what they've been through, which is really sad. And hence why I find my job to be torturous, because sometimes I'm just watching kids' lives and I'm doing the most I physically can. And it's like, even with all my best efforts, it's just never going to be enough. I can never do so much because there's only so much I have control over. And it's like I'm watching a plane crash that I'm trying to stop. I'm doing everything I can to stop, and I just can't. And it just makes me feel so much despair and hopelessness, and all these stories as well. Because again, now we're here. Things could have been dealt with in private, probably. We're assuming that they didn't try. Because you want to assume the worst. Isn't it funny how we assume the best about some people and we assume the worst about others? We literally pick and choose in society, not what's right or wrong, but what we prefer, what we decide. This is why I prefer God, who does fair judgment. It's not about what he likes and whatever. It's about what's fair. The world is just, whoever the jury of the sheep, whoever can get swayed, whoever puts on the best performance. Anyways, if life's a game, let's play to win. God bless you all. God loves you. I love you. And I'll see you in my next one.